going to ISO 13485/2016, right? This is the latest standard for medical device quality management system that has come up last year. And as Priyanka mentioned, it basically it's going to form the basis of any and every quality and regulatory strategy that you guys will come up with for your companies, right? There have been significant amount of changes in this version of the standard compared to the 2003 and 2012 version. It focuses more on the regulatory side. It focuses more on data-driven approach, statistical techniques, things like that, right? What our agenda today is going to be, in the 2 hours that I'm going to spend with you, is basically to have an overview to understand 13485, what it is, where it is, what are the difference between ISO and CE and things like that. What we won't be able to do is go into the detail of each and every clause, because 13485 itself being such a vast subject, very difficult for us to cover it in 2 hours. But let's try to get as much as possible in this 2 hours, and then let's see where we go. So going through a few things that we are going to see is we will just have a quick understanding of what is 13485, the difference between 13485 and CE, and I think this is very important for all of us to understand, because over the time that I have seen questions that I get, the understanding of 13485 and CE, people do get confused a lot. So it's important for us to understand, not spend much time, and then we'll go through the 13485 clauses, one of the main sections of 13485, and then we'll see what is the advantage of 13485. So are you guys aware of 9001? Yeah. ISO 9001. So what is different between 9001 and 13485? Any guesses?
It's basically for medical devices.
Simple. Since 2015, there has been a complete, breakage of 9001. Earlier, 9001 was a standard which was applicable for any industry, irrespective of whether you're a medical device or even if you're making rubber or anything that is services or product based, any product, any service, you guys can go for 9001. From 2015, it's been made very clear that 13485 is only and only going to be a standard quality management system standard for medical devices, right? So that's one key thing. Again, the reason I want to stress on this is because over a period of time, people have been confusing. When I speak about 13485, they'll question me about 9001. Don't do that. Focus on 13485 as a medical device company. That's where you want to focus. That's where you should focus, right? It's a standalone standard. What do you mean by standalone standard? That means it doesn't need any other ISO standard to be compliant to. As an organization, you guys can comply to ISO 13485 on its own. You don't need 9001. You don't need anything else, right? Another thing is, and then we'll see. I'll talk about that later also. The most important thing is when an organization says that it's a 13485 certified company, it's for the company. That means your organization gets certified to 13485. Okay? It's not for the product. So many times when a company gets certified to 13485, they might be making like 2 or 3 products, and they try to choose which product will be 13485. No, that's not what it is. It's an organization level certification. That means a particular company, when gets certified to 13485, what they're trying to say is, my organization is certified to 13485. Whatever happens in my organization will be as per 13485. That's the message in the most simplest way that you are giving to the outside world. The 8 key principles of any quality management system, right? What are those? Customer focus, and you will see, when we go through the 13485 section, you will see all of this is part of 13485, right? Customer focus, leadership, involvement of people, process approach, system approach to management, continual improvement, factual approach to decision making, mutual beneficial supplier relationship. Why do you guys think process approach is something that should be over here? Any guesses?
Process is where you have anything going wrong would be inherent to every part produced in the company.
Absolutely. Anything else? So let's say instead of process approach, I'm just going to tweak a little. I'll say people approach or people-based approach. What does that say? It says that your organization is going to be dependent on people. That means if people change, everything changes. That's not what you want, right? You want your organization to be driven by the people, but defined by the people, driven by the people, but it should be based on a certain process, right? Such that it is not dependent on people, right? And hence process-driven approach. Very important from, if you think from a startup point of view, right? It's very important. This particular point is very important because in a startup, it starts with like 2, 3, 4, 5 people company. Your team is very small and every person in the team is so important, right? So many times it becomes a people-driven approach rather than a process-driven approach. But from that small team, if you try to inculcate this process-driven approach over a period of time, you will see that it's going to help you in the long run in a very good way to define your processes, to follow your processes as well. Okay, going to CE and 13485. So can you guys share, what do you think? What is CE? What is CE for?
C is for product.
For product, okay. Where? What does it mean? If you have a CE marking, what does it mean? So you can basically, it's a Europe certification, it's European body certification. That means if you have a CE marking, you can sell your product to the European Union, right? 29 countries. UK is no more part of the CE certification. Again, few comments that I keep receiving is India CE, US CE, self CE, okay? There's nothing called as India CE and all, okay? There's only one CE, European CE. There are two directives. One is for medical devices and one is for IVDs, okay? Based on those directives, you will understand where your product will fall. Based on the product, where it falls, you will follow the particular structure. It's a product-based approach, right? It's a product-based approach, but the process-based approach forms a major part of it. When you go for CE certification, they do look forward to your quality management system. So if you already have a 13485, getting CE kind of becomes you are one or two step ahead, closer to getting the CE certification, right? And hence I keep saying ISO 13485 makes your basic formation is going to be dependent on how close are you meeting the ISO 13485 requirements. The good thing is the 2016 version has actually tried to put itself in line with US FDA and the new regulations that are coming up for Europe as well, MDR and IVDR. Spoke about that in my previous session, but MDR and IVDR is something that's going to come up. Currently we have MDD and IVDD. It's going to be replaced by MDR and IVDR. And 2016 version keeps, it's very much in parallel with US FDA and MDR itself, right? So that helps us in complying to these regulatory requirements as well. Okay. Talking about 13485, there are 8 different sections, right, in the entire standard. Of the 8, I'm going to focus on the 5 because that's where the entire 13485 is going to be, you as a company, this is what is going to be important for you guys, right? So the 5 key sections of 13485 are, it starts with section 4, it's called the General Quality Management System Requirement. Then comes section 6, which is, section 5, which is management's responsibility. Then you have resource requirements, not only human resource but infrastructure as well. Then comes the most important, that's section 7, which talks about your design, development, production, service, installation, all of that. And then comes the last section, which is section 8, which talks about improvements. So whatever you do, irrespective of how strong your quality management system processes are, the section 8 keeps telling you that you can never be 100%. Because improvement is supposed to be something that keeps on going again, right? It's kind of change, kind of a cycle that has to be repeated, right? I'll go back to my slide. I have one more question. So, continual improvement. Can anybody tell me what is the difference between continual improvement and continuous improvement? And why continual improvement?
Maybe after the product release, we can add one more feature on it.
Okay.
Is continual improvement a step-based approach?
Absolutely, right? Continual improvement is a step-based approach. What do you mean by that is, you improve, then you give time for that improvement to basically, stabilize. Then you improve again, you stabilize, you improve again, you stabilize. That's what, any quality management system, especially 13485, focuses on. Continuous is a ramp-based approach. That means, you just keep on improving. There is nothing called a stabilization in. So that's not, continuous is not what the ISO 13485 focuses on. We mainly focus on continual improvement. Thank you. So going to our, these are the 5 key elements provides key sections to 13485. That's where you, as I said, most of you all spend most of your time when you talk about 13485. Before we go into the 5 sections, there are a few key definitions that I just wanted to share with you guys. Medical device. What is a medical device? Right. Before you even start 13485, you want to be very clear that where in the definition is your product even qualified as a medical device. Now, not always you want to have a look at this definition, but there have been certain products that I have been working with, which in the previous version they were not even defined as medical devices, right? One such product would be 3D bioprinters. Depending on your application of 3D, the bioprinters, it can be classified as a medical device or not a medical device, right? So you want to understand what is the definition of medical device as per the standards, as per the regulatory requirements. Clinical evaluation, we'll talk about that when we talk about the clinical validation. And then complaint, what are complaints? These are two, I would say, most important things when you will start getting into this 13485 section. Validation of your product and then customer complaint handling. So we'll go into we'll start with section 4, the general requirement. So what does section 4 tells us? It's basically, it tells us that your company should have a process-driven approaches. You should have defined processes for what is happening in your company. It also gives you the leverage to define processes as per your company and as per the product that your company is into. Now it is very obvious that if the company is manufacturing something which is in plant, which is a much more higher risk product, the processes have to be much more stricter compared to a company which is making electrodes. Those electrodes that are used on ECG, right? Those are class 1 device. This is like very low risk medical device. It's a medical device, but it's a very low risk medical device. So I don't expect the same kind of strict processes that might be followed in an implantable organization compared to a company which is making electrodes, right? So you have to define that. That's what section 4 talks about. Then it talks about a risk-based approach. That is basically you need to understand as a company, as an organization, which are those processes which may lead to most risk. Which are those critical processes in your company? You want to focus on those more than the other processes, right? In your product also, in your product development cycle also, which are those cycles, which are those points where you want to focus more based on the risk associated, right? This was not there in the previous 13485. This is a new addition, focusing more on risk-based approach rather than just a process-based approach. Validation of QMS software, this is also something which is new. So basically, the standard leaves it up to you as to how you want to manage your documents, how you want to manage your quality management system, right? Whether you want to, go through a software, whether it is a hard copy, whether it is a hard copy and a mixture of hard copy and a software, that's completely left up to you guys, right? But let's say if you use software can be as simple as Google Drive, right? You need to validate that software. This is directly in line with a requirement from 21 CFR, that is US FDA's requirement, right? Again, this was not there, something in the previous version, new edition, which puts you in line with US FDA's requirement.
So if we are using something like a GitHub, which is already a verified repository system, so how do we validate such a system?
So I'll just take 1 minute to explain that, right? Without going into the details. Whatever software you use, it is used for your requirement. Define those requirements, test against that requirement. Simple, right? This is a very important question that I keep getting. How do you validate software? Something like Google Drive. How do you validate Google Drive, right? Define your requirement, test against your requirement. Google Drive can do like hundreds of things, but you don't need all those 100 things. You need only 10 out of those. Define and test. Simple, right? For any software for that matter. There are 3 different sections where software validation will come. So for any software validation requirement, this is what I would suggest the approach should be, right? Also, another thing that that is very important is for you to understand what your organization is into, right? The role of your organization and the scope of your organization. So the role can be that of a distributor, of a service provider, of a manufacturer, right? You need to understand that, right? Also the scope. The scope can be as simple as I am a manufacturer. I am not a manufacturer. I just do designing. I have nothing to do with manufacturing. I will design for you. I'll give it to you. It can be also the other side. I don't do designing. I take the design, I do the manufacture, and I give it to you, right? you need to define the scope of your organization, because based on the definition of the scopes, your the entire requirement of 13485 is going to be dependent on that, right? So that comes in general when you start defining your quality management system. Right? Apart from that, the company should have quality policy. We go through that quality policy, quality manual, right? You should have defined processes for how you're going to take care of your documents, how you're going to take care of your records. All of that is part of the general QMS requirement, right? Section 4. In the quality manual, you need to understand, you need to help the auditors also understand what is the, as I said, the scope, right? So in the scope, there will be certain, so for example, certain companies are not into sterile. They don't have anything pertaining to sterility. They are not even implant-based companies. So there are certain sections of 13485 which will not be applicable for those companies. Same way, if you are only going to be doing design and development, then production and anything related to production is not going to be applicable for your company. You need to define that earlier. That has to be part of your quality manual, right? The quality manual is going to be basically taking the requirements of 13485 applicable for your organization and putting it in one document and sharing it with people. Yeah.
So let's say the company which manufactured electrodes followed this process, got the ISO 13485 certifications, and now next month decided to make implantable devices. So what do they do now? Thank
you so much for asking that question. So you can always add your scope, you can always change your scope, right? There is a process associated to that. It's not going to happen, one fine day you go and you. So there is a process defined. But to answer your question, you can add your certification scopes. You can start with one, just being a designer. Over a period of time, you can keep on adding. You can keep on adding, products. You can keep on even increasing the scope.
But
that's absolutely
true. You don't need to start from scratch.
You don't need to start from scratch. No, it will not be started from scratch. Typically, what happens is in your every year you will undergo an audit. So in the next year audit, your scope will increase. They will come and they will audit that as well, and they will recertify your company. They will just give you a new certificate, basically. Yeah, I will talk about that in purchase, because that is actually part of purchase. I will get into that. But if I don't, please remind me. 7.4 purchase, just remind me that. So quality manual is basically, it takes this. It is basically you. First document is a level 1 document, wherein you as in the organization will help us understand, as in the auditors, help us understand what exactly are you guys doing. What is there that you are claiming from 13485? What is your role? What is your scope? What are the different processes that are in your company? How are they interacting with each other? That sort of information is there in quality manual. It's supposed to be there in quality manual. Yeah, please.
In the previous page, you mentioned something about medical devices and explained what it was. Earlier, there was this classification of MD and IVD. Looked like some of those which fell into the IVD category, like the diagnostic devices and so on, which are purely in vitro, were also listed as MD.
Yes.
Generalized description.
Yes, that's a general description which includes medical device as well as in vitro medical devices.
Okay, so we'll be doing the in vitro part separately.
No, it's so 13485 is for medical devices also and IVD also. Yes. It's in general for everything.
Okay.
Right?
Is there a classification that is followed here?
13485 has no classification. When you talk about regulatory, when you talk about registering your product, it is all about classification. So when I talk about something like, let's say CE, if your product is an IVD, the approach that we will be having to register that product for European market is going to be completely different compared to the approach that we will having to register a medical device. That is, your MDD.
So that MD is not the same as this MD here, essentially what you're saying.
I'm talking about, so when someone like me will say MDD, it's basically directive for medical devices, and when I say like IVDD, it's like the directive for in vitro. So that's what it is. Yeah. Over here for 13485, you say medical devices, it in generally consists of MDD as well as IVDD. Medical device file, it's basically, have you guys heard about technical files, right? So medical device file is nothing but technical file. But the scope of medical device file is kind of kept very limited. So if this was also not there in the earlier version, it's a new inclusion. So technical file, medical device file, the same thing. It's basically, it's going to talk about your product. A medical device file is product based. So whatever product you guys, your company is into, for every product typically there should be one medical device file, technical file. Then we have control of documents, control of record. talks more about, how do you maintain your documents, how do you identify your documents, if the documents are obsoleted, how do you control them, if you're maintaining hard copies, how do you ensure that, the hard copies are maintained properly, right? And when I say how do you maintain hard copies, it also goes to the level of, having pest controls and stuff like that, so that, the pages don't, wear out kind of thing. What I would like to focus in this slide is on control of records. There has been a very important addition in 2016 version, and that is now it talks about patient's confidentiality. So if your software, if your hardware, if your system is collecting patient information, right, that information needs to be collected, controlled, recorded in the most appropriate manner possible, right? Have you guys heard about GDPR? European requirement, right? That also came this year. Similar to GDPR, right? So again, it is trying to be in line with the regulatory requirements, right? Now, what are the controls that we can have? How can we control? That's purely up to the organization. It varies from company to company. It varies from the kind of data that you are collecting as well, and based on that, things can change. But this change that has come up in control of records is definitely going to be over a period of couple of years or 3 years. You'll see that a lot of focus being put over there in terms of control of records.
And in this slide, only one question. It says in the medical device file that demonstrate conformity to the requirement of this international standard. So from a device perspective, in terms of process, what will be the requirement?
Yeah. So good question. Medical device file over here is going to, what it needs is basically from a process point of view and also from a product point of view, you need to have a medical device file. So it has requirements like what is your labeling process for a product? What is the intended use of the product? How are you collecting data for that product? Okay, so it is linking your process for that particular product.
It's mainly bullet points kind
of thing, right? And here, trust me, it's like just 6 or 7 requirements that are there, 2 or 3 which I just mentioned. When you talk about the European requirement, there are like 13 to 14 sections that you need to cover. So if you are already in compliance with CE, this is like a subset of that.
Yes.
But still, that nevertheless, for companies which are still not started their quality management system, and you go to 13485, having a medical device file is again going to take you one more step closer to getting your CE confirmed. Did that answer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Going to management responsibility, many a times, this section is kind of, ignored or not being given a lot of emphasis. But for me, over a period of time, what I've seen, this is the most important section, because everything that happens in the organization is going to be what happens over here, right? So your management needs to be committed. That commitment has to be, in one form or the other. They are the one which defines the quality policy. They are the one which helps you in defining the quality objectives. What are the quality objectives and what is quality policy? Quality policy is the organization level statement or 2 lines or a paragraph that comes from the management which tells what is quality for the organization, right? Quality objective is in sync with quality policy, but quality objective is much more granular. It is much more, it is goal based, it has measurables, right? It can be from department to department, but it should be in sync with the quality policy. More often than not, quality policy is actually in sync with the organization mission and vision, right? So that's how the chain is, right? Very, very, very important, because again, if the quality policy is not defined properly, then what message are you giving to the outer world is the requirement for quality in your organization is not proper, right? You guys are not focused on quality. So that's not what you want to give to the outside world, right? At the same time, the objectives, if they are not going to be in sync with quality policy, then you are again not in the focused area that you want to be.
So is it a good idea to have quality objectives department-wise?
I would say yes, not mandatory, but I would say yes. So there are companies which do department-wise, that every department is in line with the quality policy. There are companies which just come up with organization level objectives which are important for the organization. So there is no one way or there is no one right way of doing it, completely up to the organization. But if you ask me, if I have to give you a suggestion or opinion, yes, it should be a department based, so that that way you are covering your entire every structure, every organization, every functionality that is there in your company, it's been covered.
Especially when the company has a very diverse role.
Absolutely. Many times, what even happens is, so we always put key focus on our design, production, because that's where a lot of activity is happening, right? But then at times we neglect our departments like marketing and sales, which are also very, very critical from a quality point of view, right? The communication that you have with your customer, the kind of information that you are sharing is all very important from a quality and regulatory point of view. So with that, example also, I would say that it's very important that if you have objectives throughout your departments. Right? Okay. Responsibility, again, the management needs to define your organization as well as individuals' responsibility very clearly. Why is it important? Can somebody take a dig at that? Why defining roles, responsibility, authority is so important?